So, Floyd's Mayhem Garage here. I've been thrashing away. I think I've done a couple other intros, may not. I'm gonna be piecing this video together because I've just been thrashing and I haven't been filming a whole lot. So, let's take a look at what has brought me to this point. Well, that's gonna need to be addressed. So front wheels, I know this one's flat and all, but the wheel is way off. So I'm gonna have to address that, but power steering works, transmission works, it drives, battery is very temporary. Fuel tank fell off, which is my gas can. I'm gonna have to wire this. I found a fuel cell for it. So quarter panel, gonna be that piece of fencing over there, or paneling, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I have to it could just be the lug nuts holding this thing. No, it looks like the whole thing's crooked. I don't know, let's get it up closer to the garage and see if we can take a closer look at it. So, ignition system, start it. Seat is just sitting on the floor. Shifter's off. It's close. Oh, it sounds like something's loose or broken up there. That's not good. Let's figure that out. Oh, that's bad. Well, let's at least work on it up here. It's going to be much better. Hey, there we go. Alright. And then we'll go to neutral because we can't get drive yet. Shifter doesn't go far enough. It's out of sync. Hopefully that's just the lug nuts. We'll find out. I'm gonna fall out of this seat. Okay, well, test drive number one was a success. It currently won't move because I put it in neutral. And then my shift linkage fell apart. So this rod right here isn't attached to anything. So that's good to know. Yeah. So the shifter falls apart. Okay, so the wheels are just turned. It likes to roll. So I might turn them and roll it back over there a little further so I can put that back on. And yeah, I'll have to figure that out. But yeah. Wheels, God, those don't look like they're aligned very well. I think that's because they're not. Well. Oh, this thing's gonna be so ridiculous. Whew! I was sweating bullets there for a second. So, I have had two dusters that I've parted out. And so I figured I had a drive shaft, but I knew one of them was a 3-speed manual, and then one was a 318 904. And I wasn't sure if I thought one of them didn't have a drive shaft, possibly. I couldn't remember. But it looks like I found both drive shafts back there, and it looks like the one with the 3-speed was 4 inches shorter. So this needed to be 54 inches center of cap to center of cap. So I've got a straight drive shaft, so that makes life so much easier. I'm gonna have to clean up the end, figure out if I need to probably be smart to put a U-joint on. I might just see if I can swap some caps over and see how well they fit, since you know, because race car. Oh man, that's a huge relief. I was panicking there for a second. I was trying to think of anybody that I knew that had a body. You know, hey man, can I borrow your drive shaft? But I'll maybe buy you a new one. I just need it, you know, in a week. All right, that is a relief. Get that in cleaned up and get that put together. Well, alrighty then, ladies and gents. Here's where we stand, I guess. Been thrashing on the what I'm calling the race car here. So if you notice, there's not a whole lot left, but take a gander at what's on the skid steer tire here. It has been snowing, and oh, the sun's just taking a peek out here. So the race was supposed to be today, well, because it snowed. Earlier in the week it was supposed to be rain, and it was only supposed to be a little bit. Then it was supposed to be a bit more rain, and then it turned into a whole bunch of rain. Then it turned into, hey, I think it's going to snow, and then it turned into, we were supposed to get like 8 to 12 inches of snow, which I'm not entirely sure how much we got, because it was almost 90 degrees the day before yesterday. It snowed all day yesterday, snowed into this morning. This morning when I woke up, I had probably 4 or 5 inches of snow on my truck, but because it's so warm still, it's all melted. But of course, you know, we got puddles and drainage and runoff, and, you know, running off the roof of the burnt house and whatnot. But so it's really hard to say how much snow we got, but we got a lot of moisture out of it. So that being said, you know, they postponed the race, so it is now 2 weeks out, which is both good and bad. I was super excited. I got my car, you know, close enough to ready to race, basically. And glad it's not going to be a mud race now, because originally we were going to run even if there's just a little bit of rain, you know. Actually, a little bit of rain out here, you know, just keeps the dust down, basically. But then it got to the point it was too much, and, you know, there's a point where it's just not even fun, and then dealing with all the mud and ruining, basically, his whole backyard. So we're postponed for 2 weeks here, which is good. That means I've got some time to do some more upgrades. So, I suppose as well, I've been just thrashing. Let me catch you up to speed here on what I've done to the old Scamp. Yeah, so since I've been on such a time restraint with this thing, I've been working on it in the evenings after work, you know, just heading straight over here from work and working on it for a couple hours in the daylight. Of course, still don't have power. That has been an absolute nightmare trying to deal with that in the county, and it's not even really permitting. It's mostly just dealing with the county and getting inspections done. So all that being said, we still don't have power. That has been a nightmare, but I'm working on this in the daylight. At least I've got the generator going, so I've got some power, got some power tools and stuff like that. Turns out my my generator is barely enough to run my welder. So the 7 1/4 rear end in this is welded up. So I pulled the cover off, cleaned everything up, you know, brake cleaned all the gears off, and booger welded the rear end together. So I'm not 100% confident that it's actually going to hold together, but I think my chances are better of the spider gears being booger welded together than just relying on the open diff by itself. So at least some stuff can break and start to fall apart and at least hold up, or I can break an axle and the rear end's still together enough to, you know, spin the other axle. Well, it's kind of my thinking there. Now that I've got some time, I might see if I can get another rear end in this still. That may or may not happen. I don't have a proper rear end for this. The only real good one I have laying around is for an E-body, so it's like 6 inches wider, or 8 inches wider, something ridiculous, than what this one is. So if I do that, I'm going to have to cut the wheel wells out huge on both sides, which isn't really the end of the world, but we'll see what I do there, I guess. Otherwise, I've got an 8 1/4 out of a B-body, but that doesn't really help me out gearing-wise. It helps me out a little bit strength-wise, but yeah, so I don't know where I'm going with that, or, you know what. Eventually, I'd like to definitely upgrade this rear end, because 7 1/4 is not going to last with what I'm planning on doing. But as well, I was originally going to run without a rear bumper. I decided to put it back on, mainly for looks. I wanted to lose the weight, but the car looked too goofy, and then I was also thinking, you know, getting bumped into, you know, you can bump into this bumper and it's really not going to do anything. You just bump into the sheet metal and it's gonna tear it up. So bumper will actually serve a pretty good purpose, and it's not a ton of weight. I actually ended up taking it apart. I took those bumperettes off, and then for 73 they added an extra reinforcement in there, so I pulled the brackets off, actually pulled that secondary reinforcement off, which lightened it up quite a bit as well. So boy, glad to see this thing's watertight. So yeah, quarter panel, which is my old barn roof, sheet metal screwed into place and riveted. Fuel cell, a guy my dad works with races cars, dirt track cars, late model, stuff like that, I believe. And so, bought that from him for $100. That was a sweet deal. Put the battery back here. Same thing, I didn't have a battery tray for up front. I could have put it up front, but since the tray was already missing, and again, weight distribution, make this thing a little bit better for catching air. Went ahead and put the battery back here. And then since I was wiring everything up, I went ahead and put a kill switch in it. Originally put the kill switch back here, and then I hesitated on it being back here, and I put it back here anyways. And then my dad reassured me my theory, which if I get hit in the back here, if it's going to turn the switch off or not. And so I like the idea of just having a kill switch on it anyway, so went ahead and relocated it from back here to up here. So it's, you know, whatever rules you're supposed to meet for a certain class, this doesn't have to meet anything. This is a race at a friend's backyard. You know, he's got 35 acres or something like that, so, you know, good sized backyard, but still. The list of rules is so old school, if you will. There really are no rules. So, seatbelt's one of them. Don't go through the fence, stuff like that. Gotta have a DOT helmet. So yeah, this whole car is a POS. It's like somebody put a lot of time and money into it. Not a lot, but you know, somebody cared for it at one point in time. And it's got some okay stuff. But one of the things I've been having issues with is everything, you know, I mess with stuff and everything is worse than I originally thought it was, you know? And case in point, I've been trying to straighten this front end out. Most importantly too, painted orange. Had to put the Dixie horns on. So yes, this has Dixie horns. But I've been trying to get the front end aligned. And the problem is the driver's side here has way too much, it's caster, but is it forward caster, back caster, positive, negative, whatever it is anyways. But you know, your spindle's supposed to have a little bit of backwards caster to it. Ooh. Well, this one's got a whole bunch of front. And that's because the upper control arm is all bent and crooked. And so I tried straightening out the upper control arm, and I got it to where the caster was at least up and down. And then at that point, it had a whole bunch of camber. And this side in particular, I could not get straightened out. The passenger side, no problems. And of course, you know, the more I start looking at it, you start picking through details on the car as, you know, you're working on it and stuff. And one of the things I've noticed is if we take a gander at the inner wheel well here, you see this split in it here. That split, something poked a hole through the inner fender here. And I doubt you can see this, it's probably dark in here, but I see, oh no, you might be able to see that. That's right where the upper control arm is. And if you look, all those booger welds are not original, and there's extra gussets of metal on both sides. And I did it on this side and the other side. So it looks like on this side, something happened at one point in time, and the upper control arm mount broke or bent or moved or something and poked a hole through the inner fender. And so, of course, they looks like they got it straightened back out, and they added those gussets to it to strengthen it up. It appears that this side is still bent and not straight. So I got this side kind of as close as I could. It's got too much, you know, forward caster or whatever it is, you know, and so the wheel turns real funny, but basically there's nothing I can do about that. And then as well, the drive shaft was bent. Had a forklift mark in it, so this thing was either moved around by somebody who has a forklift, or typically you see that when they're at a junkyard. They move vehicles around on forks at a junkyard when they don't care about them. And then, you know, quarter panel's missing on this, and the whole interior's stripped out of it, and it's just very weird history to this car. But then, you know, still it's got a 318 with some pretty expensive you know, goodies on it. It's got an Edelbrock aluminum intake. It has these Holley Sniper fabricated aluminum valve covers. It looks like it's Craigslist rebuilt. You know, you got the blue paint on the exhaust manifold. So the blue is only up here, really. The side of the block's still old and nasty. So it looks like somebody just dressed it up, but still someone spent some time on it there. It's just, yeah, so the more I work on this thing, the worse things start getting. I don't know if this had a different rear end in it at one point, and then somebody put the 7 1/4 in, because the spring plates on the bottom are flipped upside down, and they actually had to grind part of it away to fit that way. But I don't know if they did that because the shocks were too short. I don't know. It's just, this whole thing's a mess. So, and then with everything else being a mess, brings us back to the interior here. I'm really proud of this engineering. Built this with no power, basically, but heated it up, put in a vise. That's a piece of conduit, some electrical tape wrapped around the side, piece of angle iron, and a chunk of steel, and then a piece of all thread bent and a big hole cut in the floor to go down to the shifter for the transmission. And the reason I did that was I don't know, I guess it's still called a Z-bar, I suppose, even though this is an automatic that's column shifted. It's still got the bracket that comes off the steering column with a bar down to basically a Z-bar, which shifts the transmission linkage. And it appears that that Z-bar piece was not original to this car. Or if it was heavily modified. But based upon how everything fit, I don't think it went to this car, because once I pulled it out, you could see, and in fact I might have it over here somewhere. Big deal. I can but you can see where it had like vice marks in it, where one of the brackets was probably bent, and they straightened it out in a vise, and it had the teeth marks in it, you know. And so that had been straightened out, and the reason I say I don't think it's for this car was there was some interference between that Z-bar piece and the kickdown linkage for the transmission. So this never had kickdown linkage on it when I bought it, so I got that working. Amazingly, I actually had a reproduction small block throttle bracket for an A-body. That was weird, and it was in some stuff I bought at a swap meet a while back. I was digging through the box, and the lady just, you know, I was gonna pick some stuff out of it. She says, well, you know, $50 for the whole box. All right, I'll just take everything, I guess. And it happened to be in there, so that was kind of cool. But I got the kickdown linkage working, and I went to test drive it because I drove this around the block a few times. You know, with no kickdown, you step on the throttle, nothing happens. It just stays in drive, and it's just a pig. You know, it's just so slow. And so got the linkage working, went and stepped on it, and revs to the moon. I thought I broke something, and let off, and I, you know, pumping the throttle, playing with it, and we're not going anywhere. I'm like, what did I break? You know, and I'm not hearing anything, you know, anything metal on metal, anything clanking, breaking, nothing. And I finally realized, I grabbed the shifter and put it back in drive, and car goes again. So I watched the shifter. I hit full throttle again. As I hit full throttle, the linkage is hitting, the kickdown linkage was hitting the shifter linkage, pushing the transmission into neutral. So it does it again, and so then put it back into drive, and I'm holding the transmission, or the shifter, you know, and hit the throttle, and I could only go to about 3/4 throttle. I couldn't get full throttle out of it because it was hitting the linkage. So that was a nightmare. Instead of trying to source parts, I came up with that shifter inside, which I think was brilliant. So, because my idea too is if this doesn't work, or, you know, if I have issues with it at the racetrack, you know, which is at the friend's house, I can at least just pull the linkage off, reach my hand through the floor, and manually shift it, and just find a gear, you know, put it in first or second, and I can at least go from there. So that worked. But yeah, this thing been through quite a bit. Seat is out of my 68 Charger when I bought it. It only came with one, so that's been in the shed. So I found that, and it bolted up mostly right. It's a little crooked and sits a little funny. I got some extra washers under it, but it's good enough. Preferably I need to find like a racing seat at some point that actually has some, you know, contours to it that'll kind of hold you, but that'll have to work for now. Floors, you know, it had big rust holes in it. Actually came with these floor patches when I bought it, so those are just sheet metaled in. The back has a little bit of rust, not too big of a deal. And yeah, of course I did the most important thing and painted it. Can't have a race car without a nice paint job. And I've gotten to the point where I've tried rattle canning a few vehicles, and if it's not flat black, it just doesn't work. And so I actually bought some industrial paint and sprayed this, and it was getting dark when I sprayed it, and I didn't prime it or anything. I just went over it, and it actually turned out pretty good. So it's almost too nice now for a race car, but you know, one race and that'll definitely change. But it's funny, you know, this is a good, I don't know, even with that quarter panel, a good 50 footer, you know, but you get up close to it and you start seeing the imperfections in it and stuff, and the old paint that's cracked, and the holes in it from when they pulled the quarter panel out, and some more cracks in the paint, the you know, lack of vinyl top or chrome or anything, or trim. And it's funny, I didn't realize this until after I painted it too. The roof had a rust hole in it, or the sail panel, I guess. So it was actually rusted out, but surprisingly the rest of the roof wasn't bad. You do have a lot of that pitting that was in there. See if I can get this on camera there. You might be able to see some of that. But for what I was doing, it is perfect. That industrial paint is pretty cool. You get a gallon of it for like $100. So can't really argue with that. So yeah, now I got 2 weeks basically. I'd like to get a skid plate built on this, and then possibly, I doubt it, do something with the rear end, but I really doubt that's going to happen. And yeah, we are next step's the race. I'm so excited. This is going to be so much fun. But yeah, well, I guess I'll keep you guys up to date as to what's happening. I suppose I should finish this up. Like I said, this has all been kind of a weird video, but we'll keep on trucking, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy, y'all.